Tucson, welcome back to Tipping Point with me, your host, Zach Yentzer. Every day, in-depth news and discussion about the people, ideas, and issues shaping Tucson's future right here. 10:30 The Voice from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Thanks for joining us. You're always welcome to give us a call, engage in the conversation. 790-2040 is that live line number, and we hope you do. Looking forward to our guest interview today. I have sitting right across from me, Lisa Romero. She's the Senior Director of Public Affairs, Communications, and Engagement for the University of Arizona BIO5 Institute. And Lisa, I said something on the air a couple months ago that seemed to really stick, and people seem to really resonate with it. So wherever I can fit it in, I fit it in. And that is that Tucson is often a town that likes to talk about its tacos and trails more than its tech and talent. And I'll just say it again. I love tacos and I love trails, and I think it's one of the best things about Tucson. I just want our tech and our talent to be talked about as much because, as you know, with the BIO5 Institute right here out of the U of A, some of the people and ideas that are just literally around the corner from where we're sitting and what they're solving and what they're working on is incredible. And those stories don't get told, which I know must bug you because you're the storyteller, and that's the mission you're on. Lisa, welcome to the studio, and tell us about the BIO5 Institute.
Thanks, Zach. I'm really happy to be here to talk about something I love to talk about, although trails and tacos are kind of a tough act to follow for me.
Oh, indeed.
Spend a lot of time doing both of those things. But the BIO5 Institute at the U of A, I've been lucky enough to work there for a little over 8 years. And it's a gem in our community. We try to tell the story, but we don't always, succeed in all the noise and clutter of trails and tacos and other things. But I think it's an important story to tell because of the impact it has in our community, the impact it's going to have in the world, the impact it has on our students and the tech infrastructure and ecosystem, innovation ecosystem that happens here. So really excited to talk about that.
Absolutely. And the history of the Institute really backs this up as well. It wasn't like someone woke up one day and said, we're going to have a BIO5 Institute. I mean, there was legislation around this. There was intentionality. Can you talk about what happened in 2000 that stood up the BIO5 Institute? I think it's a really great story.
Sure. I will talk about that history. Actually, you set the stage well for this. I was looking at your Twitter account, and you tweeted this recently, and this sort of goes to the history of BIO5. And this is actually from Yuri Levin from the New Localism tweet. The absence of easy answers is precisely a reason to empower a multiplicity of problem solvers throughout our society, rather than hoping one problem solver gets it right. That is the stage.
Yes.
It is so good. And it is, I couldn't have made up better words to talk about BIO5. So the history is basically the vision for BIO5 was there. The interdisciplinary nature of science was beginning to be talked about and envisioned back, like as you said, around 2000. The things that were being solved in, single research labs are important. Basic science is important. We can't do without that. But the challenges we have facing the world today are bigger than one laboratory. And we were trying to talk about a way to bring people together from different backgrounds to solve those grand challenges that our world was beginning to face. So in 2001, with funding from actually Prop 301, voter-approved tax was pushed through to bolster technology research and innovation ecosystem in Arizona. At that point, BIO5 was created. And not only created in theory, but a building was built to create the actual physical infrastructure to make sure that it happened. The idea of it is that hub of interdisciplinary thinking, creativity, curiosity, people from different backgrounds and disciplines coming together to tackle the biological challenges and environmental challenges facing our world.
And Lisa, if I'm Lisa Romero at the BIO5 Institute, if I'm counting on my hand correctly, when you say BIO5, that collaboration is looking at agriculture, engineering, medicine, pharmacy, and science. Basically saying the UVA is good at this stuff. How do we get those disciplines under one roof and figure out what does that mean for cancer research? What does that mean for fill in the blank? This is the vision behind the BIO5 Institute.
Exactly. And you know, that's not to take away from the strengths in those specific areas. We have very strong colleges, you know, with each of those disciplines in their name, correct? And we have the need for colleges, but we also have a need for a sort of neutral hub where people come and they get the support and infrastructure and just the freedom to sort of break down the barriers that sometimes form when people stay in their own lane. And, you know, they just get their thinking mixed up with their thinking. And instead of, you know, people brainstorming, having free space to think. And that's what really we're about. We're about providing the support and the infrastructure and the incentives to come together and think about things in different ways.
What are some of the stated goals of the BIO5 Institute?
So we actually have a three-pronged mission, and reminding you that the mission actually comes from the fact that we are funded by the state. We have this TRIF funding, if you will, and the goals that came out of that really are again, three-pronged. First, obviously, we are set up to be an interdisciplinary research institute focused on challenges the world faces, but also challenges that are meaningful to the people of Arizona. And we always have to keep that in mind in the projects and the initiatives that we're looking at is how are we impacting Arizona as well as the health and well-being of the world. The next is equally important to us, and it's training that next-gen workforce. So everything we do, although we are not a college, we don't have students that we recruit to be students in our college. However, we have training programs and internships and side-by-side with our researchers, you know, solving those challenges and problems in the labs. We actually train over 1,500 students a year at BIO5. And again, that's not being a college of our own. It's really important to get that hands-on engagement of what they're learning in the classrooms and be able to apply it, you know, in a real-world setting. And then the third, again, is to choose projects, initiatives, impact that comes back to the people of Arizona, return on investment to university and our state.
Absolutely. You mentioned TRIF funding, and I keep coming back to this point, is that 20 years ago this year, right, the voters of Arizona said that we want to set up funding that supports this work. I think that is a mandate by the people of Arizona, Technology and Research Innovative Fund, to basically expand major efforts in biomedicine and biotech in the state. I didn't know this before, you know, getting ready to sit down and have a conversation with you, that 20 years ago, the voters of Arizona said, this is a big enough deal that we want to basically raise a tax to support it, and we're still there. That's kind of amazing. There can't be that many things similar to that going on right now.
Yeah, we were really lucky that I think, again, the people, you know, that were talking at a state level, high state level at that point, we're looking at that. Peter Likens was the president of U of A at the time, and he had a really forward-thinking mindset in terms of that, and really went after it to put it together along with other leaders to make sure that passed. So yeah, 20 years ago, we were doing things that people are just really starting to get their hands around today in terms of the idea, again, the infrastructure to support it. Really, you know, we were early adopters of how, you know, changing science is now done. And, you know, we're really proud of that. We focus on that teamwork, that collaborative approach, issues that intersect disciplines, that challenge our communities. You know, how do we prevent, treat, and cure diseases? How do we deal with the many environmental issues we face, both in Arizona and across the world? You know, how do we feed a hungry planet with really challenging environmental issues? But then we also look at, again, how do we take all of that and make sure we always have a thread of an entrepreneurial thinking coming through that. So it's not just how we think about it, it's what we do next. So people in BIO5 are going to be the people that are thinking about what we do next, not just about how we do the research, and again, how we engage our students all along that path to make sure that they are engaged, they are tied to the University of Arizona, and hopefully then they're tied to potentially staying in Tucson or Arizona, which they do in a large capacity, if they're really engaged like this.
That's really cool. And that next part is, I want to take that as my segue to our first break, because that's what I want to talk with you about in the second half of our conversation. What has been the next? What is some of the impact you've seen? What are some of these projects? What's been the impact of this entrepreneurial collaboration? What's been the impact on retention? We'd love to talk about where has BIO5 Institute come over the last 20 years, and what does it mean for Tucson, and how does Tucson lean on things like the BIO5 Institute to say, this is what we're good at and what we're here for, and use that to drive our economy and our brand. I want to cover all that with Lisa Romero with the BIO5 Institute when we come back. A short break just ahead. Don't go anywhere. Tipping Point with Zach Yentzer continues in just a minute. We'll see you on the other side.
Local and national politics, the issues that matter to you. 1030 The Voice, Tucson's trusted local news and talk.
25 years ago, the University of Arizona took a bold step of acquiring an industrial park in southeastern Pima County and transforming it into a university research park. This year, we celebrate 25 years of success at the UA Tech Park. Whether it's 20 new startups at the U of A Center for Innovation, the new tech park at the Bridges that just broke ground, or the Forge at Roy Place, we're looking forward on Tipping Point to celebrating this anniversary year by telling the stories of the people and ideas to the University of Arizona driving innovation in our region, moving at the speed of business.
It's that time of year. Everyone hates it. It's tax time. But there's no reason to stress. Shanae and the team at Simply Bookkeeping and Taxes can take care of it all for you and make it simple and easy. For Tipping Point listeners only, Shanae is offering a one-time special offer of 50% off your personal or business tax prep. Call 520-838-0856 and let her know Zach sent you to get started.
When did you lose control? Was it when you became a number and not a person? Or was it when you accepted that this is just the way things are? Truth is, you didn't lose control. You gave it up. Because you have a choice. You can make them too big to fail and fail to belong to something bigger. Or you can put your money where your values lie and make your community too strong to fail. The choice is yours. Or are you going to give that up too? Vantage West. Banks own you. You own us.
Federally insured by NCUA.
Tucson, Tipping Point is proud to have Why I Love Where I Live as a sponsor of our program. It's a brand and movement that began here in Tucson to spark gratitude and celebrate the good things about where we live. Visit their shop filled with locally designed goods and resources to encourage an appreciation and curiosity about what makes Tucson special and unique. Located at the MSA Annex just west of I-10 and Congress. Find more details and shop hours at their website, whyilovewhereilive.com.
Trusted local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Tucson, welcome back to our last segment of an always rapidly moving hour. It always goes by so quickly here in the 1030 The Voice studios, talking about the people, ideas, and issues shaping Tucson's future. You're welcome to give us a call, join the conversation, 790-2040. We're in studio right now with Lisa Romero. She's the Senior Director of Public Affairs, Communications, and Engagement for the University of Arizona BIO5 Institute. In 2000, a lot of people don't know this, the Arizona voters said, we think that the fields of biomedicine and biotechnology is so important in our state that we want to fund through Prop 301 a special technology and research innovation fund to invest in higher education in these areas and to create more energy and entrepreneurship around things that our state is just really good at, and Tucson and the U of A are good at. It's the BIO5 Institute, harnessing the fields of agriculture, engineering, medicine, pharmacy, and science, getting them all under the same roof to figure out how to collaborate on tough challenges from cancer to environment to hunger. It's right under our nose here in Tucson, Arizona. Lisa Romero, welcome back.
Thanks, Zach.
So you mentioned right as we left for a commercial break, you talked about the next and that there is an entrepreneurial kind of tie through in all these things. It's great to go in a lab and say, hey, I just discovered this great thing. It's another to get that to market, so to speak. It's another to have these students engaged and keep them in Tucson working on projects here. BIO5 is now in year 19, year 20, roughly. What have been some of the impacts that you have seen, that BIO5 has seen from this work over the last few years?
So that's a great question, and obviously that's the main goal, is moving the needle on things that impact society, impact humankind. One thing I will say is what has helped us tremendously in recent years really accelerate the pace of being able to provide impact in areas is this, again, innovation ecosystem that is now really coming into its own at U of A. So if you look at a continuum of the research enterprise, of which BIO5 is sort of the main collaborative hub in the bioscience area and in the biological sciences, and moving the needle forward in those areas. But then you look at Tech Launch Arizona. We are now able to take our ideas and not just sort of walk around wondering what to do with them, but really work with our partners at TLA to commercialize, and then Arizona Forge to incubate and bring up that entrepreneurial thinking, and then tech parks to be able to scale the ideas that come out. So that's really benefiting all of us. But at the beginning are the scientific ideas, the knowledge that is spun out. The impact that is happening is in all sorts of areas, related to diseases that impact our families. We are much farther along the line in terms of prevention and or treatment in areas like valley fever, asthma. Prevention of asthma may be on the horizon in our lifetime. And a lot of that research has been done at the University of Arizona with researchers in the BIO5 Institute. Ovarian cancer, one of the biggest cancer killers of women in the world, because it's often caught late. The director of the BIO5 Institute actually is a biomedical engineer who is working with physicians and others across the spectrum of the disciplines to create tools, to create biomedical engineered tools that she is creating, miniature endoscopes that will allow us to detect ovarian cancer and other types of cancers much, much earlier than we are able to do today. And that's something that's all being done under the roof of the BIO5 Institute. We look at things in the environment like vertical farming that will allow us to look at producing food and resources in much more effective, efficient ways without the cost and the challenges we have today. So I could go on, but those are a few examples that are happening now and are changing what we will know of our world.
We're with Lisa Romero, and the question from the BIO5 Institute, one of the questions that comes to mind, and it may be a little bit off script, but I'd love to know what your read on this is to me, this is a big deal. Again, I keep going back to the Arizona voters said this stuff is important. We want to fund it in a bigger way. When we step out of Tucson, when other people are looking at the U of A, looking at Tucson, do they look at us and say, y'all are a biotech, biosciences, biomedicine hub. You have it going on. And it's just that Tucson doesn't realize it about itself? Or do we still have a brand to create and put our flag in the ground and say, we are the Southwest hub for this? What's the state of the union, of that?
That is a conversation we have every day. And I would answer all of the above, everything you just said. I think we definitely need to tell our story better. That is a running theme for us at the University of Arizona, BIO5 everywhere across the university. And I think that's starting. I think that is starting again with these different pieces and players in place to help each of us magnify that story. But I think that people come from across the world and across the nation to visit us. So we have visitors all the time from other universities, from industry, from other educational programs to look at the model that we have, because it is pretty unique. But I absolutely do feel like we we can play with the big boys in this area. And I think that as we continue to grow and learn and make an impact, that increases even further. So, yeah, I think we need the help of our community. We need the continued support of our state. You keep mentioning this 20-year window, and we get pretty nervous because the 20-year window of the TRIF funding is actually up in 2021.
Oh.
And, that isn't a guarantee for the future. And we need to continue providing impact, showing the government and our people that this is something that needs continued investment. We need to show the education component is very important. Obviously, we are a research institute, but first and foremost, we're part of a university. So we need to be creating inspiring programs for students. We actually start in high school. We have a high school internship program called Keys that brings in people from across the state and ties them really to the university at such an early age that over 60% of those students end up staying at the U of A for undergraduate, graduate careers, as opposed to going off and going to pretty much any other, really elite program they could go to in the country. So we're really proud of that as well. So it's starting the spectrum early.
Absolutely. I think my last question, we could go for an hour on this. I mean, it is just so extensive. You talk about the retention of some of that young talents coming in the lab and staying here in Tucson. How is the commercialization process going? In other words, when you have these good ideas in the lab, how are we doing getting those to market? And if we're able to spin that out into the community, are those some next steps, right? That someone who worked in the lab as a senior or as, maybe a postdoc or something can exit into the market and be a part of biotech, biomedicine, biosciences in Tucson after the laboratory and academic experience. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's the goal. And again, starting that as early as high school. Some of those high schoolers that are coming into the labs are co-authors on papers, are actually, getting their names on things that will end up being in the marketplace. But then across the spectrum of undergrad, grad, postdocs, absolutely being tied in with that commercialization impact. Again, Tech Launch is a really big help because they're our partner in seeking out the projects that are right there, that the scientists aren't necessarily, and the scientists, much less the students, aren't trained to necessarily know. They're trained as scientists.
Correct.
Or engineers or whatever it may be. They aren't necessarily trained to know that tipping point of, when something really is viable, when it doesn't seem obvious, but yet it's there. So that's where, again, our partners with Tech Launch and others across the university are really important to help our scientists and students be tied to that, tied to that next step of growth. And also industry. We are, a part of our mission, again, is connection. So it's not just across the university, it's across our community. So connecting with industry, making sure they know about the resources we have, the kinds of expertise we have, the equipment that we have that they don't necessarily have that they can use. Those types of things, being a good partner to our industry and community are really important as well.
Lisa Romero, before we get into something else and have to interrupt each other, thank you so much for coming on the air and talking about BIO5 and talking about its impact and how we can support what's happening. And I think as Arizona, we need to keep investing in these things, right? The innovation happens when the public sector often takes the first risk and then turns it over to the private sector as soon as possible. It's a great partnership when it works, and we have to keep investing in it. So that's my little soapbox message at the end. But thank you for BIO5, what you do. Thanks for telling the story and coming on the air today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was our conversation with Lisa Romero from the BIO5 Institute. You can find out more by going to, what's the website?
bio5.org.
bio5.org. That's easy enough. Today's show was sponsored in part by the Talent Store, founded by my friend Devin Underwood, bringing these stories and messages to you. She helps local companies, like so many of yours listening right now, win the battle for talent through recruiting services and talent strategy consulting. So if you want to bring on a C-suite executive to match your skill, a mid-level manager, or you just want to recruit and keep the teams on the ground that you have, don't wing it. Partner up with someone who knows what they're doing, especially as larger companies move into Tucson. The talent pool will tighten. You need a pro on your side to make sure that your company is a leading employment brand that great people want to come to and stay. Go to yourtalentstore.com and schedule a free consultation. When we come back on the air tomorrow, Rhonda Pina, she's running for Pima County Board of Supervisors in District 1. She's our guest interview tomorrow, Wednesday, March 4th. We'll see you then, 10:30 The Voice. This has been Tipping Point with Zach Yentzer. Have a great Tuesday.